Will the arts ever be the same again? Hello, everyone. I'm François Picard. Welcome to the France 24 debate. Yes, through the magic of digital technology, we've stayed connected to music, TV series. Distribution giants like Amazon have kept delivering books. But more often than not, entertainment, culture, well, it's a communal experience. You need an audience. Even when lockdown is eased, there'll be no Glastonbury Music Festival. There'll be no Avignon Summer Stock Theatre, no Cannes Film Festival. Can artists, producers, distributors hold out? For instance, with COVID-19, will it kill the neighborhood movie theater for good? They were already struggling. We'll ask our panel about the French president's promise of support for the industry. And it is an industry, one that generates much more wealth than, say, automobile manufacturing in France. Is it the state's role to support struggling artists? If so, to what extent? And how does confinement alter creativity? Well, to talk about it, we're pleased to welcome two artists confined to the UK capital, London. They've been working on the Virtual Collaborators series. Let's say hello to Danusia Samal, actor and writer. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks.
All right. It's been cruelly sunny skies for most of this confinement on our end. I hear it's been the same for you as well. Atri Banerjee is with us as well, playwright. How are you feeling?
Hi, I'm all right, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, I'm going to rub salt in the wound, Atri. Just how much has COVID-19 ruined your summer plans?
It really has put a massive hole in them. I was in rehearsals for a production of West Side Story, which I was the associate director on, and I was due to direct a big new production of the Tennessee Williams's The Glass Menagerie, both at the Royal Exchange Theatre up in Manchester. And unfortunately, because of lockdown and because of COVID, they have both been indefinitely cancelled. But I'm hoping they'll come back at some point in the future. It's been a weird time.
And Danusia, we're gonna show a clip of what you both have been working on. You've been very busy during this lockdown period. But what was Plan A for you?
Plan A was I just started with a new agent and I was planning to hopefully land a new acting job. I just finished filming a TV series and I was very hopeful about the future and all the work I'd put in and reaping the rewards of it. So
it's deferred for now.
Yeah, it's deferred.
All right. Here in France, a lot of worries, and we're joined at this point by culture editor Eve Jackson. Eve, this time of year right now, you're hectically getting ready to go to the Cannes Film Festival. Of course, that's off.
Of course, the Cannes Film Festival is off. We were due to leave next week. It was supposed to start for 2 whole weeks in the south of France on the French Riviera. It'll be the first time I haven't been for quite a long time. I've been going for the last 12 years. So we're all quite disappointed, but it hasn't actually been cancelled, the Cannes Film Festival. The director, Thierry Frémaux, is determined some way or another he's going to hold this festival in 2020. But as yet, we have no news. It's definitely not going to take place in the summer, though, perhaps in the autumn.
All right. And, film, TV, France has the biggest industry in all of Europe. It's big business, and this is a big problem. Solange Mougin has more on that.
Movie theaters where there isn't a soul in sight. Action, rolling, cut. Utterances of the past because of cancelled film shoots. Abandoned sets like here in Paris's Montmartre district. The French film industry has never before shut down like this. In the southwest of France, in the Ariège department, this movie theater has been empty for a month and a half. But the film projectors keep running.
Donc là, en fait, on vient plusieurs fois par semaine allumer tout le matériel numérique afin que lors de la réouverture du cinéma, tout le matériel puisse repartir convenablement.
No one knows when the some 6,000 French cinemas will be allowed to reopen. The financial cost of their shuttering keeps going up in a country where 200,000 tickets are normally sold every year. Many films have had to postpone their premiere dates. Others have gone straight to TV or video on demand. Sites like Netflix have become increasingly popular with millions of new users in the past weeks. Nearly half of French internet users say they have access to a video streaming platform. As for film shoots, some 200 had to suddenly shut down because of the coronavirus. Even ones that had just a few days left of filming. Others had to rework their screenplays.
On a revisité les scènes qui avaient les 90-100 figurants pour les redescendre à 12 maximum. Oui, donc on a réécrit ces scènes qui étaient des scènes plutôt de foule. Voilà, on a tout changé. On peut pas faire autrement, de toute façon, on n'a pas le choix.
Action!
No one knows when things will return to normal for the French TV and film industry. Some 250,000 people work in the sector in France. Since the coronavirus lockdown, the sector is thought to have lost hundreds of millions of euros.
Si les tournages ne reprennent pas, on va se retrouver là avec un nombre de sociétés en faillite qui va être très important.
Emmanuel Macron said Wednesday that shoots will not start up again until at least the end of May, and that a fund for financial compensation will be put in place.
Yves Jackson, the Cannes Film Festival, we were talking about it earlier. It's important to note that, it's a film festival with awards, and those awards matter afterwards for film's prestige. We saw it with the winner of the Cannes Film Festival last year, which went on to win the Oscar for Best Picture. But it's also a film market. And also, people don't know if they don't go. It's about those parties, right? Where you're at the Cannes Film Festival, you're at a party, a producer meets an actor, a distributor meets a director. This is how movies get made.
It is, in the olden days anyway, that is how movies have got made. I wouldn't know too much about the parties, Francois, because I do a lot of work at the Cannes Film Festival. But this coronavirus really has robbed the film industry and movie studios of this crucial window that they have every year of 2 weeks in the south of France, where the sun is shining. Obviously, sometimes it does rain, but the sun is shining. We're next to the sea. Everyone's kind of excited and positive, and lots of deals can be made. It is the biggest movie market, the Cannes film market, in the world. I think there's something like 12,000 people there just to make movie deals, to get films made, to find promoters, and to find distributors. And if you're not there, obviously it's very different. They are going to try and do this movie market virtually this year, which means that people will view films on a computer. They'll bid for films via email or in chats like we're doing right now, but it doesn't have the same zest, that same excitement. And of course, when you're doing a movie screening to try and get distributors, you don't really have the audience reaction if we're watching on a computer. So lots of that will be lost. So even though that will take place virtually, though, as I said, Thierry Frémaux, the festival director, he is determined that this can't be a virtual festival, probably, and for some of the reasons that you just mentioned, that you can't hold the Cannes Film Festival without actually being in Cannes.
Yeah, and it's not just the Cannes Film Festival. As we saw in that report by Solange Mougin, it's all those temp workers of the entertainment industry who in France have a special status. If they clock in normally 507 hours, they have the right to benefits. The French president, hearing the call that was launched by people from across the arts world in an open letter that was penned in Le Monde a few days ago, they included the likes of famous actors like Catherine Deneuve and Juliette Binoche. That call was answered on Wednesday by the French president. Let's listen.
We'll look at the situation at the end of May and decide how to move forward at the start of June and how we can start to reintegrate audiences. And to do this, we'll have to invent new forms. But cultural venues must be brought back to life. Artists must be able to create again and to work together to reach audiences, even if during this intermediary period we are going to have to rethink a new sort of relationship with audiences.
A new relationship with audiences, Yves Jackson, and the main announcement from his speech on Wednesday, which was that they're going to roll over for a year temporary layoff benefits for those industry workers.
That was the main thing that he announced. Now, this is a very special status, this element of the French art scene, intermittent de spectacle, that's what they're called. And they're the envy of struggling artists all across the world. And there are 275,000 people with this special status here in France. And they're basically actors, dancers, performers, and even actually the technicians working behind the scenes at France 24. Often they are intermittent de spectacle. Now, basically what it means is they have special benefits. When they don't work, they get paid. It's to protect them against downtime, really, when they're in between jobs, they're not earning. Artists in the rest of the world, they have to go and find waitressing jobs or telesales or find some other sort of way to make money. Here in France, you get paid when you're an artist, when you're not working. But as you said, to get this status, you need to work a certain amount of hours. That is 507 hours minimum a year. Obviously, at the moment, most of these artists are unable to make these hours up. So President Macron announced yesterday that there will now be an extension to the time you have to make up these 507 hours, and that will be August 2021.
Eve Jackson, France 24's culture editor, many thanks for joining us here in the France 24 debate.
Pleasure.
And at this point in the conversation, we'd like to bring in somebody who knows how things work on both sides of the channel. Her latest album is called Night and Tales. Jazz singer China Moses is also the host every Thursday on TSF Jazz here in France, and Monday to Thursday in the UK on Late Night with China Moses on Jazz FM. Welcome to the France 24 debate.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
I'm sure that Danusia and Atri are jealous of that special status that artists have here in France.
Yeah.
But concretely, how does it look right now? When you listen to the announcements that were made, and really what's needed to keep this essential industry going?
Well, the thing about the intermittent spectacle, it's something that a lot of people have been trying to get rid of for a lot of years, because they feel that as if artists, when we're not working, we should just get another job. The way that it's looking is that hopefully the delay will happen. So for those who already have the status, will have a little bit of ease. You can't make a full living off of your pay from the intermittent spectacle. You it's limited. It's not like you can rock and roll and like they pay you like full salary, what you're used to. It really varies depending on the jobs that you have in the year and how much you make in the year. So that's looking, it's already something great, but it's just as good as regular unemployment. It's just that we have to make hours to qualify to get this special, the special thing. It's culture is going to always be the last thing that is going to be saved. And what's beautiful about culture is that no matter what situation, it always happens, no matter what. All right,
let me bring in on this point, Danusia, and just tell you, if you're jealous of the fact that there is this special status for workers in the arts industry in France, one figure I read is that 2.3% of GDP in France comes from culture, but year on, the French state spends 0.7%. So even in France, it's not a lot of money. Your thoughts on what's going to be needed in these difficult times?
I think a huge level of appreciation of the amount of work that happens in the arts and culture sector, which just hasn't been there it's not in our government. It's not something that's talked about. I think at the moment, what we're seeing is that obviously we're all stuck at home and people are really relying on the initiatives that are started by artists in the community. There's been a lot of people doing work just out of a love of what they do. And it's been really heartening and important for a lot of people to have that outlet. So we're going to need a level of appreciation of what happens. And even if we can't make our government understand the value of culture for culture's sake, maybe it's about realizing the knock-on effect of a number of huge businesses and industries going under.
Atri Banerjee, when you look at the French model, even here, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel envy looking at the French model, and it's been heartening to see in countries like France and Germany how there is real value and appreciation placed in arts workers. And to some extent, I'm quite lucky because I was committed to these projects and I have been paid in quite large chunk for them, even though they have been cancelled. But I know lots of my colleagues and lots of my friends who are just starting out are not eligible for the government's support for self-employed people because they may not have had 3 years tax returns. And it means that lots of people are falling through the cracks. And there obviously have been opportunities that have been digital and people have been doing it for love, but lots of these opportunities have been unpaid. I do think people are struggling. And
just to have an idea, what's your mindset right now? When do you think people, theater goers, will feel that it's safe to go back and will be buying tickets?
Gosh, I think there's there's two ramifications. I think there's one, the issue that people will not necessarily want to be in a live space with 500 or 600 other people. But in terms of the work on the other side of the stage, it's going to be very hard to rehearse anything. And when you can't have actors coming close to each other and forcing them to be 2 meters apart from each other at all times. I know that Nika Burns, who runs lots of the big West End theatres, was talking about implementing a South Korean scheme where people get their hands sanitized and their temperature checked before coming in. But I know that most of the theatres in this country, pretty much all of them, including the National Theatre, can't afford to keep their auditoriums open at limited capacity, which is what social distancing would require. And that feels scary at the moment, I think.
China Moses, on your website, there's still the list of all the summer concerts you were going to do. It's
I forgot to put canceled. It's just I haven't been doing much. I haven't wanted to do.
But what's your feeling when you think to everything you had lined up, all your ducks were in a row?
You know, I've always worked jobs. I'm not scared to go and try to hustle something. I've doubled hustled my whole life, and I come from a family of artists that have always double hustled. And I also come from a family of activists who have done a lot of art and theater and stuff for free in times of, when segregation was happening in the United States. My father made a theater company that was free for the people, and he went and hustled money from people who had money. There's always going to be people who are going to want to invest. We are going to lose a lot of venues. I mean, for me as a singer in the world of jazz and stuff, our clubs are going to be closed. Like, they're not going to be able to make it, most of them. The only thing that we can look forward to is maybe outdoor festivals. I mean, it's for me, honestly, in comparison to what some other people are going through.
What's the Paris jazz scene like without La Chapelle des Lombards, without the sunrise, sunset, without these mythical clubs that were confined and we're all together having a drink, listening to the music?
I know the slight thing that's a little bit different from theater and dance, where you do need a lot of space, is that we can have a concert, 2 people on the corner. My mother lives in New Orleans. They're doing porch concerts right now, and putting out a tip jar. They're going back to the way jazz started, kind of. So in that sense, I mean, those places, we can't do social distancing in the tiny jazz club. That's just not going to work. It's just like, it's just like, it's just not going to work. What are you going to do? Put 2 people in there and have 6 and 4 people on stage? It's just not going to work. I think we're just going to have to get really inventive. I have some friends in New Orleans. They were like, we're looking into, putting on shows on the, the floatables that they use for Mardi Gras and stuff. They're like, we can put about 4 musicians on one, put the trucks together. We're just going to have to get inventive, because that's what artists do. It's a new reality. And I'm hurting. I'm gutted to have lost most of my income. I also have the radio show, so I'm actually very, very lucky. I have a lot of friends who have no income, like 0. like fighting with landlords and trying to explain. And we're already looked down upon. You know, most people think that, you know, we're alcoholics and crazy people. So, you know, they're like, yeah, why don't you just go get a job? But I also have, like, I was speaking to a singer friend who's more like in the soul and house music. She's working in a factory, actually, packing boxes right now. She went out and got a job. She was
All right,
like,
well,
you know, I got to pay the bills.
You said we have to be inventive in these times. Well,
Yeah.
It just so turns out that Danusia and Atri here
Are
present
being inventive?
have been inventive. In fact,
Yay!
I'm going to show you now a short movie. It's a clip from a short movie. It's called Me Me. It's performed by Iniki Mariano, written by Danusia Samal, directed by Atri Banerjee. Let's take a look.
Yes, yes.
6 a.m. Wake up. 6:15. Try to sleep. 7 a.m. Scroll.
We're gonna financially recover from that.
8 a.m. Scroll. 9 a.m. Netflix.
'Get up. Get up.
50.
Just get up.
50.
That was so.
You have to watch the whole video to figure out what the numbers mean.
What the numbers mean.
Yeah.
Well, I shall. That's really cool. Thank you for doing that.
So
That's
that was posted to YouTube. Sorry to be crass and talk money here. You can't make a living off that, can you?
No. No. No, I think what it is about is expressing creativity. So it's all started with a call out, and then we ended up with 50 artists, all of whom have made amazing films with varying levels of inventiveness and kind of crazy ideas, and they've all been actually really quite brilliant. And I think for people, it's just a source of release. It's using the skills that they've got. And a lot of us have got other jobs. I know people packing in factories or have gone to work in the Nightingale Hospital or various stuff. But it's something else. It's like, it's what they, it's why they get up.
So let's talk about the creative process here for a second. Because you're not in the same room, obviously, when you write it, Danusio, is it you have to be more methodical than usual, write out a storyboard with coloring and pictures for each frame?
No, I mean, you'd have to ask actually about directing remotely, which I think was different. But I think from our piece and quite a lot of them, it was about actually just having a chat over one of these kind of face chat things, and people just talked about their experiences, and quite organically, I think every piece grew out of a discussion. So they've all kind of become quite personal. They've all been quite sort of shared. Like, I wouldn't say that I wrote that piece on my own. We talked about a lot of stuff, all three of us, and then that became the themes of the piece. And I think for a lot of people, that's been what their experience of doing this collaboration has been like. It's sharing, and then something gets written out of it. So I actually found it quite organic, maybe less formulaic than it would be if I was writing a TV script, where I probably would be writing each scene out and storyboarding and all of that.
Was that your experience, Atri Banerjee, that it came organically?
Yeah, just to build on what Danusia was saying, like one of the things I loved, I mean, the project is called Virtual Collaborators, and I loved how collaborative it was from the very beginning, and Danusia and Iniki and I sort of working together. And I think we really wanted to capture something that was, I guess, both about the sense of alienation that we can often feel behind screens, whether they're computer screens or phone screens all the time, and make a piece that I think reflected that in its form in some way. And I think also on a more emotional level, I think there was something about this pandemic and this global catastrophe feeling obviously so total and global the whole time, but it then can also feel very personal and feel like it's just about you, not in a selfish way necessarily, but just because so many people are experiencing grief in different forms, whether that's obviously in the worst case scenario, loss of family and friends, but then on a smaller level, grief in terms of loss of projects and loss of livelihood. And so I think the fact
that you're able to turn it around and be creative and do things fast, because you've done it fast. It's only been several weeks that we've been under lockdown. What does that tell you?
It was I think it was really heartening that it was a way for us to, I guess, capture a feeling and capture a mood and kind of get it out there quickly and sort of generate it in the moment. And I was thinking about it. It'll always be really nice in some ways to be able to look back on this film as a record of what we were going through, because it's funny how quickly feelings can move on and how quickly you can forget things.
Don't we?
One final question on this, Danusia, the creative process in all of this. You know, whether it's TV shows or movies, you're often writing stuff that's going to be filmed a year and a half later, 2 years later. So you can't be writing about confinement all the time, can you?
No, and I'm definitely not. I think this project's very immediate and we're making material as opposed to writing. In terms of my writing projects, which actually have been quite, I think there's been a kind of onslaught of that because people want to make stuff for the future. I'm as far away as possible. I'm writing road trips about traveling across Europe. I'm writing space. I'm like, I don't want to stay confined. And I think that in terms of the future, if and how things are getting made again, it will be about moving away from confinement. What is interesting though is how we reference it, because it will be something that's changed a lot of us and our consciousness and our state of thinking, and our belief probably in the Western world that we're undefeatable. I think that is going to work its way into the writing, but I think there's also a real hunger to see stories that just aren't about being locked up in your house. But it's nice to respond very immediately to this now and be able to do it quickly without budgets, without all of the kind of politics that comes from making things professionally, and actually just to go, what does this feel like? It reminds me a bit of the UK grime scene, which started with boys in their bedrooms making songs and became a whole music scene. It sort of feels that immediate. We're using whatever equipment we have and making stuff.
See, this is it. This is the double-edged sword we've been talking about with technology. On the one hand, here we are talking to each other. Virtually, we're not confined, right? Since we're all speaking to one another. And as you just described it, there's all these opportunities. But then there's this sort of vertical compression of the means of production by a few big corporations that are sort of sucking all the oxygen in the room. China Moses, you during this period of confinement, mostly were staying away from music, you were telling me earlier.
I haven't been created for nothing. I have had a lot of people call me. Today is the first time I actually really sang. I haven't been feeling creative. I mean, we're all so different. We all have different creative processes. I need to be with people to create. My job is making people happy and, taking them on a journey through my songs. And, so you have to reformat, and some people can reformat quickly. I am pretty much a slow one. I am definitely more the tortoise than the hare.
All right. You said it was the first time today that you sang. Let's take a listen.
Listen as your day unfolds. Challenge what the future holds. Try and keep your head up to the sky. Lovers, they may cause you tears. Go ahead, release your fears. Stand up and be counted. Don't be ashamed to cry. You gotta be bad. You gotta be bold. You gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard. You gotta be tough. You gotta be stronger. take a different view. My, oh my, hey, you gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be calm, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Don't ask no questions, it goes on without you, leaving you behind if you can't stand the pace. The world keeps on spinning, you can't stop it if you try to. This time, danger is staring us in the face. We gotta be bad, we gotta be bold, we gotta be wiser. We gotta be hard, we gotta be tough, we gotta be stronger. We gotta be cool, we gotta be calm, we gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. And all I know, love will save the day. And all I know, love will save the day. And all I know is that love will save the day.
China Moses, how did it feel singing again?
It felt weird, and I didn't choose one of my songs. I chose Desiree's "You Gotta Be," because I've always loved her as an artist, and I love that song. And I just have not. I feel that my music, what I've created with my friends, the people that I work with, I don't feel that it has its place.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable with it. It's not like I'm talking about going up in the club and partying, but I think I just want to be still for a minute. I'm a touring artist. That's what I do. I've been on the road for 10 years. So actually, this is a moment for me to actually sit still. So that's what I've been doing. And singing feels good, of course. Singing into my closet, not the sexiest thing. I do have some sequins, to keep me, entertained. But
You heard a minute ago,
Denusia,
China, Denusia talking about how this is a moment that's going to challenge all of the core beliefs we had about ourselves and our society.
Yes.
Is it the same for your repertoire? When you look back at, jazz is something where you often return to old standards that go back even to the 1920s.
Yeah.
Are you going to be? Has it shaken a bit the way you look at your music and look away at other people's music?
No, actually, I find comfort in the history of Black American music. The adversities that it's the ways that people had to get it across. I think of the music from the 1920s and 1930s when, you had songs about reefer men and women being lesbians and going out and getting the pigfoot and a bottle of beer. That's what they were doing after going to church. And it was a rebellion, and it came from nothing, kind of like the grime scene, a lot of art that actually comes from nothing. And I really think this is going to be an amazing time for art in like a year or two. Like there's just going to be an explosion of ideas, and that comes from feeling the pain, feeling the frustration, feeling the hope, all these different emotions that we're going through. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I don't have a straight week at all. It's like up and down every day. Like I have it's kind of like the London weather, It's been really nice, actually. I can't say that anymore. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
Denusia Samal, do you share that faith?
Yeah, I'm amazed by the kind of inventiveness of people and already how clever people are being. And I don't know what the answer is, but I feel like there will be a huge push from our community to to react and to adapt and to keep making stuff just because it's an instinct and people want to. So there is, I know that there'll be a lot of really down days, and we'll see closures of places we loved, venues we loved. But we probably will also see a lot of inventiveness. And also what I found really heartening in all this is our industry can be quite competitive. And sometimes you feel like you're comparing yourself to this person who's more successful than you, that person. And what this feels like it's really done is taken a lot of that away. So I'm really hoping that we carry on doing that. We sort of go, right, we're a community as opposed to artists competing with each other. And we're going to do whatever we can to keep making stuff and to kind of rebuild our industry, however differently that's going to look.
Yeah, you talk about the fact that it's going to be a big challenge for the traditional way of doing the arts. Neighborhood movie theaters that were already struggling. One of the most famous art house cinemas in the Latin Quarter of Paris, La Clé, which is right now occupied, squatted by those who want to keep it open. Well, during confinement, they've been showing movies on the wall of a nearby building and basically doing the Paris equivalent of a drive-in movie, like the other night with Night of the Hunter by Charles Lawton. Take a look.
That you, Bart? Supper's waiting.
That's so beautiful that they did that.
Not everybody lives in the 5th arrondissement, unfortunately. Atri Banerjee, does that inspire you? What's the next step for theater?
Yeah, just to echo what Danusha says, I've also been really inspired, but even in doing this project, by the community and the solidarity and friendship that artists have been able to offer each other. And also just to echo what China said, I don't think there's any pressure for people to make work at this point, and there shouldn't be any pressure, because I know that this isn't a writer's retreat, is it? It's like it's a global pandemic. So I know on a personal level it helps me to make stuff, and it helps me as a way of processing, but I don't think each to their own. But just with a slightly more pessimistic outlook, I think aside from the economic, like the cultural sector in the UK offers 110 billion pounds to the economy, and it was the fastest growing sector. But then we look now, and just yesterday, Nuffield Southampton Theatres, which is one of the biggest regional theatres in the country, has entered into administration. And that's not a small theatre, that's a big theatre. And I worry that unless the government steps in quite a big way, there'll be further long-term impacts, and other big theatres will have to close. So, it's like you said, Francois, it's a two-edged sword. Like, on one hand, it is a chance to stop and reflect and sort of contemplate stuff. But on the other hand, unless there's government intervention, it's going to be very tricky.
All right, I want to go around the room before we leave and ask a bit what we started to broach with China Moses earlier, which is what's been sort of the comfort classic that you've gone to. A friend of mine, as journalists, suggested I rewatch, and I did. His Girl Friday by Howard Hawks, which is a classic movie about journalists. What has been your sort of comfort cultural fare during this confinement? I'll begin with you, China.
Well, thanks to my radio show, the radio shows that I have in France, they're weekly, so I get to have a different theme. I choose a different theme every week, and I dove deep into the world of Alice Coltrane, John Coltrane's widow, and the music that she did after he passed is absolutely brilliant and intense and spiritual and layered, and it's lots of different fused cultural influences, and so that's been keeping me a lot of company, actually.
Danusha Samal?
I'm going to say I wasn't watching any telly at first, and I've just started watching Never Have I Ever on Netflix, and that is my biggest comfort in all this. It's all the things that I love, and it's total escapism. Atri's laughing because he knows that he watches it as well.
Atri Banerjee, guilty as charged?
Yeah, I watched it. Guilty as charged. I mean, the scene where they did a bit of the glass menagerie was almost too much to handle. I was a bit like, this is painful. I've been reading a lot of poetry, and the American poets like Elizabeth Bishop and Frank O'Hara, and Elizabeth Bishop has an amazing poem called One Art, which starts, "The art of losing isn't hard to master." And I've also been Notting Hill as well. Richard Curtis rom-coms has been like a good comfort watch. So,
all right, certainly a guilty pleasure there. Many thanks. I want to thank you so much, Atri Banerjee, for joining us. And again, good luck to all three of you. I want to thank Danusia Samal, China Moses, all of you for being with us. Keep us abreast of your upcoming projects. We want to thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate. There's much more on our website, on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel. Bye for now.